2, 3. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our city council meeting. Welcome to city council meeting. I'm sorry to be slow. It's my fault today, trying to do too many things. Right, Joe? And but we will get started. We're just missing one council member, but I'm confident he'll join us. To start with, let's do this if we could. Like to have Tim Martin will lead us in an invocation. Tim is I believe, the long-standing secretary of the St. George Area Interfaith Council, permanent secretary.
Because he who controls the agenda controls the world.
There you go.
So that's what we've learned.
So Tim will lead us in prayer, and then we'll do the pledge after that.
And I want to thank the council and Mayor John for the support for the Interfaith Council. We're going great, 9 years now, 22 churches, congregations, with the LDS Church being one, and it's just going great. So thank you very much, and we feel part of the community. This helps. You know, it helps to have our members come and get to meet you and be visible. So if you'll join me in, yes.
Prayer over the city.
Prayer over the city was great. Yeah, we had 200 people, and prayers by 14 different religions, 16 different people, and it was just marvelous. You know, it was a good way to start the year. So thank you for the support that we received. Thank you. Please join me in prayer. Our Father in heaven, we thank thee this day for the many blessings that we enjoy as we're members of this wonderful community of St. George and the surrounding towns. We're thankful for those who labor so hard to make this a wonderful place to live. We're thankful for Gary and for Mayor John and for Sean and for the City Council and all those on the staff that work to make sure that everything is done properly and that we are able to see the outcome of the decisions that will be made and be able to make good choices. We're thankful for the hard work that has gone in over the years, and especially these last few years, to make St. George a wonderful place to be, and a wonderful place to visit, and a wonderful place to live and raise our families. We ask thy blessing now to be with those who are making decisions, both here in this chamber as well as in our county and the state, and especially in our nation, that we might have peace from the outcome of the decisions that they make. We're thankful for our health and strength. We're thankful for the sun this beautiful day and the opportunity we have to appreciate being alive and being able to be part of this wonderful world. We ask thy blessing upon all those who will be presenting, those who will be thinking about the outcomes, and those who are making decisions, that they might be inspired and make the right choices. And these blessings we ask in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you, Tim. Appreciate you. Okay, let's have the Pledge of Allegiance. I've invited at least three, might be four now. Is that right? Four members of Troop 1829 from the Dixie Downs area to come and lead us in the pledge. Caden George is the patrol leader. He'll be the voice. Come tell us what we need to do, Caden. Come on up here, all four of you. You can bring your leaders if you want, or I doubt if they'll come. Yeah, that's what I thought.
Formation. Audience, please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The audience may be seated.
Excellent. Thank you. Wait a minute, guys. Wait just a minute. We're not done quite yet.
Reverse.
Very good. I like these guys' sense of humor. So, Caden, tell us what merit badge you're working on today. I assume there is one.
Citizenship in the community.
Citizenship in the community. It's a long one, but yep. Okay. And what rank are you in scouting?
I am in life.
A life? Star?
Life.
Okay, life. You're close. Getting close to that eagle.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we expect to see a good eagle project from you.
Yeah.
All right. Who's next to you there? Come introduce yourself, sir.
I'm Isaiah.
Isaiah?
Mavalu. So, and I'm first class.
First class. And also working on citizenship in the community.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
I'm Seth Shumway, and I don't know what class.
I think you're
Second class?
Second. Yeah, I think I'm second class.
Okay. Very nice to meet you too.
I'm Kian Luke.
Kian?
Yeah.
Kian Luke.
Yeah.
And what are you working on? Citizenship in the community?
I'm not sure. I just came here. I'm not.
You just came. Well, this is the hottest ticket in town. I mean, they televise this. You know, you can watch it later and see yourself. Do you know that? Hi, Mom. Yeah. Very good, gentlemen. So you got to tell me one more thing. And for this one, we want you to turn around and face the audience. Will you recite the Scout law? That's the big laundry list one. A Scout is? Yeah. Obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, reverent, and hungry, right? Don't you have to say hungry?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Gentlemen, thank you for being here, and stay as long as you like, and leave whenever you need to, or when you can't stand us anymore, okay? All right. Thanks, gentlemen. I think we're in good hands in the future. Leaders, keep working on them, though, will you? Just to make sure. All right. All right. Very nice to have you here. Now, I'm not aware of any pre-agenda items. I don't see anyone here looking like, no, Mayor, you're supposed to have us. Okay, so we will, Gary, any changes to the agenda? Okay, then we'll go to the consent calendar, starting with the public comment. I don't have any forms that have been submitted. Did anyone mean to fill out a form in terms of public comment of a general nature? This wouldn't be for any public hearings that are on the printed agenda. This would be for things that aren't on the agenda. Any such people wanted to make any comments today? Seeing none, we'll go ahead then and consider approval of the financial report for November of 2017. Ages ago, 2017.
Mayor, if it's all right, as
Yeah.
part of that, I'd like to see if it's okay if you let us skip to item 6A.
Sure.
This is similar to the financial statement, but our auditors are here to present the audited CAFR for our 2017 year, and
If it's good news, Gary.
I think it's good news, and
All right.
plus one of them's got to go to a wrestling match to watch their son wrestle, so that's
Oh.
more important. So,
Well, we better do that.
all right.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My name is Steve Palmer. I'm an audit partner with Hinton Burdick CPAs and Advisors, and we have recently completed the fiscal year 2017 audit of the St. George City. Before I start, I'd like to express thanks to the finance department of the city. They do a really good job in maintaining the books and records and safeguarding the assets of the city, as well as putting up with us for the period of time that we're here performing the audit. The audit is a very important function to have an independent set of eyes look over the finances of the city, but at the same time we acknowledge that we're an additional burden placed upon them with all of our requests and inquiries, and they have been just great in providing us with the information that we needed and responding to our inquiries. So to get down to it, I guess the main thing you're interested in is, did the city pass their audit? And the answer to that is yes, the city passed.
Hooray.
In relation with the audit, there are 4 reports that we issue. The first is the independent auditor's report, and in that report we issued an unmodified opinion on the city's financial statements, which means that in our opinion as auditors, the financial statements present fairly the financial position and the results of the city's operations for fiscal year 2017. The second report that we issue is a report on internal control over financial reporting and on compliance. and I'm pleased to report that we had no findings in that report, no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies. The third the third report that we issue has to do with the federal single audit. As you know, when the city receives federal funding, the federal government requires a separate audit of compliance with those funds. We did notice a couple of minor instances of non-compliance in that audit. They were relatively not too serious. One of those issues has already been resolved, and the city staff is working diligently to resolve the other issue. But it didn't result in any question costs or significant findings, nothing like that. It's more an issue of making sure T's are crossed and I's are dotted. The last report that we issued is a report on state legal compliance. Again, we didn't notice any significant items. However, there were two minor items that we noted. The first being that one fund has a deficit fund balance, and a second fund exceeded their budgeted expenditures. And once again, the finance department is aware of those items, and they are taking steps to correct them. I'm also pleased to report that all required reports have been submitted to the proper agencies, to the Federal Audit Clearinghouse in the case for the federal funding, to the state auditor, and to Emma in the case of reporting on the city's bonds and the like. And I kept it brief. That's my report. The city passed. Your finance department is doing a wonderful job in protecting the assets of the city and performing the accounting function. If you have any questions for me, I'll be happy to answer those.
Steve, I have a question for you.
Sure.
Speaking of the mic, will you, Ed? Is it on?
Yes, it is.
Okay, there we go.
I think it is. On a couple of those issues, in the interest of transparency for the public to know, can you elaborate a little bit more on that one issue on the services for the new fire station on Little Valley, the deficit which might exist, and can you explain that a little bit to the public?
Are you referring to the one fund that exceeded their budget?
Yes.
I think Tiffany may be able to provide a little bit more of the detail, but it's my recollection
It's the planning for the new fire station in
Right.
Little Valley, and we did not adjust the budget. There's funds in there to cover the expenditures, but we did not do a budget adjustment in the fiscal year to make up that difference.
That's right. As I recall, one invoice for services that were performed prior to the end of the fiscal year came in really late.
Yep.
And so the finance department simply didn't have the information they needed to amend the budget in a timely manner. As I recall that.
Funds are
accurate?
there and accounted.
The funds are there, that's correct.
The funds
yes.
are there.
Well, and part of that issue too was the ones designing the fire station, like 80% of the work was billed that month, which we weren't anticipating that. We had budgeted for 20%, which is typically what the work they would be done. And by the time we got the bill, which was June 23rd, and wasn't paid until July 25th, it was too late for the budget bill. That's the next one.
And the other fund, Mayor, just to clarify, that is in deficit is the Dixie Center EDA fund, which has been in a deficit for the last couple of years because we did the improvements, you might recall, on the road out in front of that, and we're waiting for the revenues that we received from the new buildings that were built after we did those improvements. And so that will rectify itself here probably this year. So.
Very good.
Very good. Gary, any other comments in response to the report?
No, I just would like to reiterate what Steve has said about our staff. I mean, we have a top-notch staff, and they are very deliberate and take their jobs very serious. And we, I think, I would compare them with anybody in the state of Utah. We appreciate the openness with the auditor, and we like to call him during the year to find out if we have any questions about anything that's happening. They're very good at giving us their opinions as before we make a potential mistake or miscode something that might be in a questionable area. And so we have a great relationship there, and we're grateful that they came back with a clean opinion, and I think it's certainly a good thing.
Yeah, very good, Stephen. Thank you. And we do, we certainly want to have a good relationship, and and welcome you. And in the interests of transparency, as Councilman Baca said, and just doing our fiduciary duties. We want to make sure we're doing everything right, and when there are mistakes, we'll fix them. So, sounds like no significant findings, and that's always good to hear.
That's correct.
Yeah, not always the case, and so we're, again, appreciative of our staff, and we've had a lot of changes in the last few years in staff as well, so I think they've done a great job. Trevor, thank you. Tiffany, thank you, and Deanna on the budgeting end, and then previously over the administrative services and financial areas. So anyway,
great job.
thanks to your whole team, and appreciate all that you do to make sure we're, keeping our fiduciary responsibilities. So
And thank you.
Council, any other questions or comments? Otherwise, I think we need to.
Mayor,
I don't think we need to adopt this because you just send it off. Is that
It's
right?
not.
It's not something you adopt. You
It's
send
not-
it to the state auditor's office.
Is that right?
Right.
Okay.
even our financial report?
No,
we will go back to that.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's what I was going to.
Okay. Well, let's go back then to the financial report, Gary.
Okay. Trevor's submitted that financial report to you. If you look at for November, we appear to be in good shape. Sales tax are above estimates. We don't see any major issues at this point in time with those revenues. If you got any specific questions, I'll let Trevor try to answer those if I can't, but I think we're in good shape.
Any questions for Trevor?
It's just such a beautiful, readable document, and I really appreciate the work that they do. And would be happy to move that we accept our financial report for November 2017.
Second.
We have a motion by Betty with a second by Michelle. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And again, thank you for the work. We appreciate it. It takes a lot longer to make the report than it does to read it and vote on it. So we apologize if it seems too fast. But as Betty said, we love the way it's put together. It's easy for us to read, and we're in good shape. We appreciate that, and all the department heads that make it in good shape. All right, Gary.
Let's go to bid openings for a second. We should be able to finish those before public hearings get too far past. The first item is a bid for sewer manhole rehab on 3000 East. If you drive down 3000 East, you see that the manholes are kind of settling a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that Scott was just telling me that it's gas that's in that thing we haven't experienced before is kind of eating away the manholes. And so we're trying, this is a application that we're trying for the first time. It's kind of an epoxy that we're going to try and see if we can remedy that problem. And we'd like to do a little more than what's budgeted. I think we've got $30,000 or $40,000 in the current budget, but we're asking to award the bid for $72,000 to do some additional ones out there that we'd like to get to right now. And so that's it. And Brett, you can probably tell them who was bidding and where we ended up there.
Yeah, so this one, we did do a formal bid on this, and we got responses from 2 different vendors, and we are requesting to award this bid to Stag Technologies for the amount of $72,688.85.
Any questions about this request, council? Ready for a
I'll
motion?
make a motion to approve the bid to Stag Technologies for the sewer manhole rehabilitation on 3000 East in the amount of $72,688.85.
Second.
I have a motion by Michelle and a second by Joe. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously. So Scouts, we just spent almost $73,000 just like that.
And wait till the next one. We'll spend more than that.
It's going to get better. Okay.
And the next one is the bid award for the Virgin River Emergency Watershed Project. This is a joint project with the NRCS, federal agency, to try to do some riprap protection for our utilities along the Virgin River, primarily upstream from the Man O' War Bridge and downstream of I-15 is the major project area. Plus, if you remember looking at St. James Park in the last, when we did get rain a year or two ago, that we had some erosion next to the St. James Park. And so they were very gracious in adding that to this project line. And so there's a primary funded by the NRCS Emergency Watershed Project, and we have the matching funds for this project is coming through the Washington County Flood Control Board, which I think you guys, some of you said on that.
Yeah.
And so it's a great project. Brett, why don't you give them the numbers on who bid in that?
All right, this one was a more popular bid. We got 7 different vendors that bid on this. Lowest bid was Feller Enterprises, so we're requesting to award the bid to Feller Enterprises for the amount of $1,056,161.70.
And that's our share. The total was it 2.3? Is that right?
No, I think our budget was 2.3.
Oh,
I don't
yeah, that's
think
right.
The totals.
Oh yeah, you're looking at the budget. So the $2.3 million budget, that includes in addition to the
Engineering,
construction, engineering, testing, advertising, and all of that. So this award is just for the construction of it.
But still, is this just the city's portion?
No, I think isn't this the whole portion, Cameron? The $1 million is for the whole project, or is it it's not just our portion? For the watershed project down in the river.
I'm sorry. This is for, that's
Man of
just
War
our
and
portion.
St.
of it.
James.
Our portion. Okay, so the match on that is 25% of the total cost.
So this is a big couple of projects, really.
Yep.
And we have been working on this through the Flood Authority.
Yes.
And then individually for some time.
They will be reimbursing us the full amount, the Flood Control Authority.
Okay, good.
So, yeah, we are fronting the money up front for what the flood control doesn't have, but then we will get it back as they have it in their budget.
Excellent.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments from the council on this?
No, I'll make a motion, Mayor, to award the Virgin River Emergency Watershed, approve that in the name of the Virgin River Emergency Watershed Project, and award the bid to Feller Enterprises for the construction of that in the amount of $1,056,161.70.
Second.
Motion by Ed with a second by Betty. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Ed, are you in favor? Yes. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously. And again, yeah, we did just spend $1 million that time, young man. But we will get most of that back, so, all right.
Hey, the next item is a service agreement for the required state review of our fuel tanks and sampling of the soil around the fuel tanks. And this is an annual agreement with Stantec Consulting Services, $35,100.
Questions on this service agreement, council?
No, I'll make a motion to approve the professional service agreement with Stantec Consulting Services in the amount of $35,100.
You have a motion by Michelle with a second by Joe. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Brett.
I would suggest we just go right through the agenda then, Mayor, to the public hearings. It's 5:30, so I
Yep.
think we can go ahead with the public hearings.
Let's do it.
First item on the agenda, 3A, consider a zone change from open space to R110 on approximately 5.27 acres for Double W Bay and Gate located approximately 1400 west, 3650 south. So this is a zone change request. This is the area that they're requesting the zone change. You have Bainberry here. This is Marigold Way Gatehouse, and so it's that vacant property located here. The general plan is low-density residential, which is 0 to 4 dwelling units an acre. The request of R110 fits within that land use category. The zoning is currently open space. There's a variety of different open or residential zoning districts around it. You have PDR, RE 12.5. Most of the other properties around it is R110. This is the exhibit that was provided by the applicants showing the R110 for the request. Planning Commission took public comment on this item and recommended approval. And that concludes staff's presentation. If the council has any questions.
Council, do you have any questions? You might remember this general area we approved some time back. I forget what it's called. Is it? It's Benji and Tiffany Nelson's project.
Yep.
And so this is just
north.
Yeah, just what would that be? North of that?
North.
East? I don't know.
It's right here.
But anyway, it's that colored portion there. So it's certainly protected from the river. It's further up than the other is. So any questions before we open the public hearing? Okay. Thank you, John. We'll open the public hearing this time for anyone who may have come to express input or ask questions on this item 3A on our agenda. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Is there anything the applicant, if he's here, that he'd like to say? Don't see him, so. Oh, they're back there. Anything you want to say? Okay. Council, if you have any comments or questions, great. If not, I'd be ready for a motion.
Mayor, I'd make the motion. Betty, did you want to, were you going to do it? No. I'd make the motion to approve the zone change from open space to single-family residential, 10,000 square feet minimum lot size on approximately 5.27 acres for double W. Bain Gate, located at approximately 1400 West, 3650 South Bloomington.
Second.
I have a motion by Ed with a second by Michelle. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, starting with Joe, say aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Mayor and Council, next item is item 3B. Consider a zone change amendment in the planned development commercial zone to develop what's called the Big Shots Golf Center driving range located at the intersection of the I-15 freeway and the Southern Corridor. Representative here tonight is Bob Hermanson. So there's a written text that's in your packet, and it basically says it's a destination golfing facility located at Desert Color South Block, and that's currently under the Atkinville Interchange Area Zone Plan. It's for a driving range, a 9-hole putting course, and indoor and outdoor dining. And with this zone change amendment, they're asking for a maximum height on netting poles range from 75 feet to 150 feet tall. This shows the zoning. It's planned development commercial. This shows a general plan here, E for employment under the Atkinville plan. And this shows conceptual other development in the area, but tonight we're talking about right here. This shows conceptually in the green some of the landscaping that could go around it. Again, here's the I-15 freeway. Here's the Southern Corridor. There's a building in the center, driving range, and then a parking lot here. Close-up detail of that. I know this is too small to see. It's in your packet, but we have a landscape plan, and staff will look closer at that if this is approved during the site plan review process. This is a good exhibit. It's a rendering that shows conceptually the building. And then you're looking in the distance where I'm pointing with the arrow to the Southern Corridor. These are the 150-foot high netting that would be around it, and the parking lot on the outside. A front elevation. West side and east side. At the Planning Commission asked for a little more treatment, a little more rock, a little more decoration on the west to match the east, and they've done that here in this exhibit. I don't know if these are photos of an actual facility or photo simulation, but this shows looking back at the building out from the driving range. and again, a couple of other views. When I get to the end of this presentation, I'll talk about the lights that are up here, and I'll point those out now. That's on a photometric plan. And then a view inside. I understand there's a facility similar to this in Las Vegas. I haven't seen it, but perhaps some of you have. There's a color materials board on a table right in front of you. Same one I'm showing on the screen to show the colors. A lot of earth tone, and then shows a cultured stone. The Planning Commission didn't see this exhibit, but the applicant got it in at the request for more detail from the Planning Commission, so you'd see it tonight. We do have a photometric plan. It would be very hard to see in detail. I do have the case file here in a large plan if you need to look at it. But basically, here's the field, the building, and the parking lot. All these little dots, I'll show a close-up of it, are what the levels of lighting are. And so in the parking lot, basically there will be 4 parking lot light stands, a Cobra head, dark sky style. And then on the building there will be 4, they're showing 4 building mounted lights, and those are the ones I tried to point out to you in a photo a few minutes ago. And we looked at how many lumens the whole project had. We took the square footage of the entire area, which is shown here. We took and calculated all the lights, all the lumens, and then we do an average of 0.65 lumens for this, all of this area here shown in yellow. I won't bore you much with this, but this is a lighting table. It shows the type of fixtures will be in a parking lot, and then these are the type of lights that are on the building. And here's the building, here's the lights on top of it, and I just wanted to show, as you move out 40 yards, 75 yards, 100 yards, you can see the lighting drops off. Each of these little points that are hard to read, I just randomly showed. This would be like for 30-foot candles. It drops to 24, goes to 5. And then as you get all the way out to 200, 240 yards, it drops down to completely 0, and all of this blue that you can see is 0. So that pretty much completes staff's presentation on it. I'm going to look through the packet, see if I missed anything. Planning Commission does recommend approval. That's on page 2 and 3. It was a 6-to-1 vote for approval. And there are 11 items I'll touch on briefly. Item 1, zoning. It's recommended that the PD zone change amendment be approved on 10 acres. The use, item 2, is in harmony with what's previously been approved for Actonville Master Plan. You'd be looking tonight at the layout. If you feel the conceptual layout is presented is okay to approve. Planning Commission did that and recommends approval. Number 4, colors and materials, again, are before you. That was recommended for approval. The design is recommended. There was a little bit more detail they want on the west side, which you were shown tonight. The height of the building is 45 feet. The poles and nets are about 150 feet. There was some discussion about longevity of them, and the applicant can touch on that. And they have, I think it's in the CC&Rs, but they have requirements to replace them so that they don't get frayed and deteriorated with time. Looks to meet the setbacks. Landscaping appears to meet requirements. 10, I've touched briefly on a photometric plan. And 11, they'll have to do a site plan review, civil engineering plan review. And that concludes staff's comments.
Council, any questions for Ray?
Question, Ray, on the lights that are on the top of the building, will they be directed down, or are they going to go out there part way besides?
My understanding, I'll let the applicant touch on it, is that they'll be directed down so that they're not causing a nuisance and out. And that's what I think that you're seeing here in the, let me get to it, where you can see they're dropping.
The only concern I have is if it shows out to the freeway, you know, if people are coming down from the north and that shines too bright into them. But I don't think it will if they aim down.
We would be concerned with that too, and we'll let the applicant just reassure us that they are going to be
Thank you.
down.
Is this part of a bigger project, or is this just a standalone project?
Well, I guess it's it's part of the big,
The big, okay.
what's it called? The Desert Color.
Color.
Project. It's part of that,
That's
but
what I was
it's,
wondering.
yeah, but it's standalone in that separate ownership and operation. You know.
Okay.
You can see rough conceptually here, and I don't know the layout. We do have another project that'll be coming soon that's in here that is pretty much as it's laid out here. Gas station, car wash, restaurants, and again, it's, as the mayor said, as part of the color.
That would be about 42 acres in the second one you just mentioned.
In this area, I'm not sure John or Bob Hermanson can verify that.
Is there a concern that that if they're all different owners, that they were, or maybe that doesn't even matter? I don't know. I'm just asking, trying to conceptualize this.
Well, it is part of an overall, or would be part of an overall development plan. Is that right, Gary? Which is, I believe, the city has now. We're working on that.
Okay, great.
So it should all connect. I think there's already a draft that's being worked on. We'll have to approve that at some point or consider approving it. Ed, any other comments?
I just want to ask Ray, I noticed, Ray, this for public consumption, that the lighting is measured in lumens, and yet on number 10, under lighting, it refers to not to exceed 1 foot candle, and it goes on to say not to exceed an average of 15-foot candle. Can you let us know what the difference is, why we're candles and lumens, so that we can have...
I think I can touch a little bit on that. Let me see if I can find a good exhibit. When we look at the actual hardware itself, they're rated in lumens, and it shows, like here in this column, lumens per lamp. So we will look at all of the lumens, all of the fixtures that are there, look at their ratings, add them up, and then to get an average per square foot. They appear to always do it in lumens, which is a European measurement. Foot candles we use as a U.S. type of measurement level, and there's conversions for them, but all of these photometric plans, all of these dots, they always show them the numbers in foot candles. So, hope that answers.
Any other questions? All right, would the applicant like to come forward and maybe address anything you'd like to, and then maybe a couple of questions like the lights?
Appreciate your time, Bob Hermanson with Bush and Gudgel. I think that Ray did an excellent job presenting the project. This is Big Shots. It is included in the Desert Color community that you guys have seen us over the last couple of years, right? Kind of going through that process. And that is moving ahead with you guys as well, and we're looking forward to bringing a whole bunch more to you in the very near future. In general, I think that he has covered it all. The intent is for the lighting. That seemed to be the major question that we talked about, is that the intent of the lighting plan was to show that we are only putting the lights on the building themselves. They are showing down the field, down the range, and by the time they get to the end, as far as the power of the lights, basically, is it's at zero. Like by the time, well before we even reach our end of our area, before we get to Southern Parkway. And the intent is to shine them in a downward fashion, and that's why that's trailing off. The lights have enough power where if they were angled up, that they could easily reach further. And so the main area where people are going to be able to see the balls and see where they're going to hitting is the more the concentration is more down in this area, right? And so in the detail there, like Ray said, you can't see it on the scale that he presented here, but it's much more powerful right here. It's zoomed in right here in front of you so you can see what you're doing, but then as it goes away, it does dissipate significantly down to zero at the very end there, closer to this area at the Southern Parkway. Not sure if there's any other specific questions other than that.
Someone did ask about the acreage. Do you know about the approximate acreage?
Yeah, it's roughly, in fact, I think we've got it right on here. Whoops. This thing is really touchy. Let's see here. About 10 acres, roughly, is that site. And so just so you guys are aware, there was a comment about how it incorporates into the Desert Color community. And so Clyde Companies will be managing all of the Desert Color communities and everybody within that. And it will be managed by one HOA. There will be a master that will significantly dictate everything that goes on inside this development. In fact, the renderings that have been provided by the Big Shots group have actually already gone through our internal Desert Color Architectural Committee and have been approved. And just wearing both of my hats, I am working for the Big Shots group, but I am the development consultant on the overall Desert Color project, so I can speak on both sides of that. And it has been approved. Those renderings have that they provided us as Desert Color. So that's it. Is that it?
One other question, and it's probably on here somewhere, but you could tell me what's the length of the driving range?
I believe it's about 1,100, 1,200 feet total.
I meant down from where you hit the ball?
Yep.
1,100 feet.
You won't hit it out, Joe.
No, I know I won't. That's why
Gary
I wonder
might.
why it's so long.
Gary might, but
Gary might, but I
Yeah,
won't.
right. He probably would actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this is so they have the Big Shots group has several of these throughout the country, and it's a franchise, and then this is their standard footprint. Like the building's the same, the fields are the same. They also will have a professional putting course that you can barely see right down in this area. It'll be just right in this area. We don't have the final design on it yet, but it sits right here. It'll go through the construction drawings where you'll actually have professionals be able to, it's not a putt-putt course, but come out and have professional putting lessons and be able to go through that. And so that'll be a really nice add-on as well. But this is basically their standard footprint is my intent there to tell you.
any other questions for Bob? Thank you.
Yep, appreciate it.
So I will open the public hearing at this time for anyone who might have come to provide input on this item 3B on our agenda. Excuse me. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and come back to you, council, for your action.
Mayor, I'd like to move to approve a zone change amendment in the PDC Plan Development Commercial Zone to develop the Big Shot Golf Center, our driving range, at approximately the intersection of I-15 freeway and the Southern Corridor.
With the conditions of Planning Commission, I'm assuming.
Thank you.
Yep.
Second.
Motion by Betty with a second by Michelle, and a close third by, I perceive, Jimmy. Anyway, any discussion on the motion? All in favor, starting with Ed this time, say aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Bob. Gentlemen, thank you.
Next item is item 3C, consider zone change from plan development residential to plan development commercial at 3143 South, 840 East. And basically, this used to be called the Ivory Homes building. Here's the Desert Hills High School and the middle school. You probably noticed all the development that's occurring right in here that's of a commercial nature. But basically, this is a cleanup item. The general plan shows this land as commercial. And if you look here at the zoning, it shows it as plan development residential. As we go back in time and we looked at the master plan for Hidden Valley, we have the written documents that this was always intended to be commercial. I don't know why it wasn't called out or individually labeled as commercial in the past, but with all of this development that's occurring here, plan development commercial, it's a cleanup request tonight to make that PDC also. And it's called Canyon Media because it's been sold by Ivory Homes to Canyon Media.
It's where all their stations are now,
Correct.
as I understand it. Any questions on this, council?
I'm just reaching back in my poor little brain somewhere that I thought part of that on that road that runs on the west side of that was going to remain residential.
This here
Yeah.
is all commercial, and they are intending to make this also townhomes in this area. That will be right back behind it. So the request is not all of this to be
Right.
planned
Just the
about
corner.
commercial.
I
This
understand
area
that.
right up here.
Yeah, I understand that. Okay.
So that's what you're remembering. That's what I was remembering too, Joe. Any other questions? Okay. Then let's see. Applicant on this, I don't know if there's anything really needs to be said, but
The city initiated this.
That's what
And
I
I
figured.
called and talked to the owner, and he had given me something in an email that he was supportive of it, so.
Okay. Okay, then I will open the public hearing at this time for anyone who might have come to express input on this item, 3C. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and come back to you, council, for your action if you're so inclined.
I'll make a motion to approve the zone change from plan development residential to plan development commercial at 3143 South, 840 East.
Second.
Motion by Michelle with a second by Joe. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, starting with Joe this time, say aye.
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 Ed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, it's 3D, consider a general plan amendment to amend the general plan from PF, public facilities, to LDR, low-density residential on approximately 17 acres for the Willows, located approximately 2710 East Crimson Ridge Drive. So this is general plan amendments. This is the location. There's Crimson is located here. This property was owned by the school district, and they had intentions of building a school at that location, but they've determined that it's not a good location, so they've sold it to a developer who's now come forward to request a zone change, and I'll kind of go through and touch briefly why the need for a general plan amendment. The general plan shows it as public facilities, which is a PF. The zoning is A1. This is our table for our land use categories, and our land use categories translates into specific zones. And so if you have an MD or an MDR, these are the zones that an applicant can request for. If you notice down here, we have a public facility PF. If you follow the table over, under what zones they can request, it states public facilities may be allowed in all zoning districts. And so it really doesn't give us any guidance on a specific zone. And so staff felt that it may be good to kind of clean this up, given there's not a PF zoning district. And so the request is to change from PF to low density residential. The surrounding areas low density residential, and that is the request. And Planning Commission took public comment and recommended approval on this application.
Any questions for John?
I just asked John, so now what we might see there, the citizens who live around there will have something that'll match the surrounding area.
Yeah, the general plan will match the surrounding area. The next item will be the zoning, and so you'll have the ability to consider their zone change request.
Thank you.
Okay, if no other questions, thank you, John. We'll open the public hearing on this item 3D for anyone who may have come to express input on this. Again, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and come back to you, council, for your consideration and action.
Motion to approve the general plan amendment to amend the general plan from public facilities to low density residential on 17 acres for the Willows.
Second.
Motion by Michelle, second by Betty. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, starting with Jimmy going that way, say aye.
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 Very good. Motion carries unanimously. Keep them on their toes, young man. See? Did you see that? Yeah. Caden saw it. Yeah. Okay, John.
Next item, 3E, consider a zone change from A1 and A20 to R110 on approximately 17 acres for the Willows located at 2710 East Crimson Ridge Drive. So again, this is the property. Crimson's located here. General plan, we just discussed or took action on the general plan. The zoning is A20 and A1. You have a variety of different zoning in the area. To the north and to the east, there's R110. There's some RE 12.5 located to the south and westerly. So the applicant on this property is requesting R110. This is the exhibit that was provided from the applicants, again requesting the R110. Planning Commission recommended approval on this zone change request.
Questions, council? just the next step, as
Yeah.
John said, was he promised it was coming. Okay, thank you. We'll open the public hearing on this item, just following the last item, 3E on our agenda for this potential zone change from A1 to R110. Anyone here to express input on this item? Please.
Hi, my name is Court Rasmussen. I live at 2720 East, 3390 South, which is just around the corner from this. And I may be premature. I just have some input on Crimson Ridge Road is very busy, and I was wondering if this is the time to suggest that houses not front on Crimson Ridge in this subdivision, but rather there would be a block fence, and that the houses would front from inside the subdivision. Am I premature on this?
Yeah, that would be done at plating. It certainly can be noted by staff, but they're here, and we'll note that. But pros and cons to that as well.
Okay.
But we can certainly consider that as we move forward.
All right. Thank you for the intrusion.
But I know what you're saying.
Okay.
So we'll certainly consider that going forward. Thank you. Any other comments on this? It's become a busy road, hasn't it? A lot of people living out there. I don't know. It might actually, thinking of a school being there, that might have created even more action. So I don't know. Maybe it's a better use given the situation there. So we'll see. Council, I'll close the public hearing and come back to you for your action if you're so inclined.
I'd just like to ask, maybe John, a little clarification, just so the public can get a better handle on it, as I can. You got 10,000 square foot lots, so can you give us an idea of the density per acre?
Roughly with R110, you're about 3 units an acre.
3 units per acre?
Roughly.
That's good.
Take out the streets and sidewalks.
The streets, yeah.
Very good. Any other questions? I'm ready for a motion then, if you are.
Mayor, I would move to make a zone change from A1 agriculture and
A20.
A20 agriculture, right, to R110 single-family resident, 10,000 square foot minimum lot size on approximately 17 acres for the Willows, located at 2710 East Crimson Ridge Drive.
Second.
A motion by Betty and a second by Ed. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, starting with Michelle, going that way, say aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously.
The next item, Mayor, we need to make sure that the public understands that the agenda that's published is incorrect in the address. However, the address in the public notice that was required for the public hearing is correct. The address is 400 North, not 400 South.
So this is a request to consider vacating a portion of 400 North Street located at approximately 364 West, approximately 133 feet by 6.5 feet. You can see right here, this is the right-of-way line along here, along 400 North. And so they're requesting to purchase that portion and move the property line to right there. And the reason is they feel like a setback from here 25 feet would set their home in further than these homes, and so they want to bring them more in line with what's been constructed along the road already. And so the setback would then be taken from the back of walk.
So just a question on it. So in reality, that curve is really where we're going to move it to?
Yeah, so your right-of-way line would come to here, go down here, come across here on the back of walk, and then come back up.
But it's not going to change the face of that lot at all.
No, you know what? I looked at this really quickly just to see. This home is set back 23 feet from that point right there, and this home is about 28 feet. So if you took it from there, he would be 25 feet, so he would be back in here somewhere. That's why he's trying to pull it forward to match what's already there.
And is that a sidewalk? So
Yes,
it would
is
go to
a
the sidewalk?
Yeah, so property line goes to the back of walk.
Hey, Wes, the applicant is Stacy Young. Is
Correct.
that the Stacy Young that
The
appears
Stacy
before us
Young.
all the time?
Uh-huh.
I don't see him.
That's surprising.
Yeah. Well.
Okay, any other questions? All right, then I'll open the public hearing on this item, 3F on our agenda for anyone who may have come to express input. And seeing none, I'll close that public hearing and come back to you, council, for any other questions, discussion, or your action.
Mayor, just a comment from the staff standpoint
Yes.
is that we've been working with others that are coming in to look at kind of rehabbing the old part of town, and anything that we can kind of do to encourage 3 new single-family houses on a lot in the older part of town, we're trying to encourage that.
Yeah.
And especially here where it's not creating a big, if it was going to be set closer to the road than the existing ones, then you might have a question about it. But where it's really not visually seeing any difference between the setbacks, and we felt like that would be an encouragement to try to see some new development in the old part of town. So
This is real common in a lot of those parts
Yeah.
of town as well, where the right-of-way is much larger than what the
Right.
road and the sidewalk actually is.
exactly. And you're going to
this
see
before.
it. You're going to see it in the old part of town quite a bit because you got 90-foot right-of-ways on a lot of those streets, and your streets are already built out, and there's no way you're going to go in there and widen those particular streets out because they're residential. And so I think as a incentive to kind of encourage new development in that particular area, we ought to kind of try to encourage that by looking at the streets and narrowing some of those rights away a little bit on those that are not going to be need for 90-foot wide roads.
Well, and as Betty pointed out a few meetings ago, there have been some really nice results
right.
from doing that. Right, Betty, on Diagonal and
Yeah.
other places. So
I've got a question. If those 3 lots are going to be in that new 50-foot frontage that we had approved,
Right.
beautiful, beautiful. Thank you.
any other questions? Okay, let's see. Trying to remember, did I already do the public hearing on this one?
Yeah. You opened it, didn't you?
You opened it. Yeah.
I'll close the public hearing then and come back to you, council, for any other discussion and for your action if you're ready. 3F.
Mayor, I'd make the motion to approve the vacating portion of 400 North Street located at approximately 364 West, 400 South. North Street for a portion of the roadway that is approximately 133 feet by 6.50 feet, located just behind the sidewalk.
Second.
Motion by Ed with a second by Betty. Any discussion on the motion? Jimmy just whispering again, it says south on here, and that's right. Gary just mentioned that on the notice it was correct and said north, and that is correct, so we're able to proceed with that correction. Any other discussion? All in favor, starting with Joe, say aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. I got you all guessing now, huh?
Okay, Item 3G is a request to consider vacating an easement located at the Hilton Roundabout, located at 50 West and 1350 South. So basically, they want to vacate this public utility easement right here. Here's where the roundabout is, Hilton Drive, Black Ridge Drive. This line right here represents, there is already an easement here underneath this easement, and so really you'll end up vacating just this portion right here, as there's already an existing easement underneath that easement.
JUC has
Yes,
reviewed it,
it's
and there's
been
no
JUC,
problem, there's no
and,
utilities in it, there's no problem.
There is a sewer line that comes up, from what I can tell, but then it stays within this
In the-
easement right here, not in here.
So we're not vacating the entire area that shows in yellow?
You are vacating, because you have an easement on top of an easement, so you are vacating the total area in yellow. It's just that there is already an easement underneath that easement, is kind of what I was trying to explain.
May we ask what they're going to do there?
This is that commercial project. They have, they've given some ideas. They haven't really moved forward with any of it. And so you'll notice here, this hatched area, it represents or it correlates with what they're proposing in the future. And the hatched area here is what they propose as easements for utilities and access to all of their commercial property that they're doing.
Betty, the other corner is going to be a Maverick.
Okay.
The one where they're doing the most work right now. And last I'd heard, they weren't ready to say or didn't have final commitments on the other side.
It'd be nice to have something done there.
Yeah.
They're moving a lot of dirt on the west side of where
great.
this is.
Any other questions? We do get asked about those things a lot, don't we, when things get started? So as soon as we learn something,
When
we'll
we
try to-
moved here, that was a prominent
Yeah,
spot.
that's right.
I mean, the bustle and hustle of the city was right there.
Yep.
And it died.
I still wonder if we might ought to change the name of that road at some point. We just haven't gotten to it and known what to call it, but Hilton Drive really doesn't apply over there anymore.
No.
So we'll work on that. All right, I'll open the public hearing at this time for anyone who might have come to provide input on 3G on our agenda. And seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and come back to you, council, for your action.
Mayor, I would move to vacate an easement located at Hilton Drive Roundabout, 50 West and 1350 South.
Second.
Motion by Betty with the second by Michelle. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, starting with Ed, say aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, item 3H is a request to consider an amending a final plat, Southgate Hills Phase 5, and vacating a public utility easement. Basically, this was lot 38 right here, and then this was lot 15, I believe, and they are merging these two lots together and amending the plat to merge these two lots together and then vacate the public utility easement that was there between the two lots.
Questions on this one, council? Okay. Then we'll open the public hearing on this item to 3H for any who may have come to provide input. Okay, we'll close the public hearing and come back to you, council, regarding this. Let's see, is this...
It's an amended final plat,
Gotcha. Yep.
Public utility easement vacation.
but it's not an ordinance.
Right. So if you're so inclined, entertain a motion to amend the final plat for Southgate Hills Subdivision Phase 5 to merge to two TWO contiguous lots together and vacate the public utilities and drainage easement located between these lots.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Michelle with a second by Ed. Any discussion?
There's mention of language in there to add for walkout basement. Does that need to be done now as well?
Mm-hmm.
Also to add language to note number 7 to allow
Must
walkout
have-
basement if approved by the
Must have
city.
added that, so.
Yes.
Okay.
You should put that because it's probably on the
Yeah.
plat. They can't have it.
Right, so then it would be just amending it to allow it if they can show that
It
they can
meets.
meet city standards and so forth with grading and drainage.
Michelle, are you okay with that addition in your motion? Betty, or is it Ed?
Ed.
Ed, are you okay with that addition to the motion?
Yes, sir.
Any other comments? Thank you, Jimmy, for picking that up. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
All right, Mayor, we'll go back to staff reports. Item 6B is a request for approval of local consent for a Class C liquor license at 974 West Sunset Boulevard. The applicant is Artesian, is that right? Artisan, excuse me. Artisan Pizza, and they're located at 974 West Sunset Boulevard. The applicant submitted their information and background history, and it was reviewed by staff and found clear without any problems, and so the license meets the requirements of the city for consideration.
I think on these, it would be appropriate that we start making them bring samples.
Bring pizza in.
I thought you meant beer.
Samples of the pizza, I just want to clarify.
Well, beer
Yeah, the
too
beer
at this
is-
point. For Joe, both.
We don't want to
don't
get in
care.
trouble with anybody.
Thank you.
Could free up some of your time on Sunday, Michelle.
It could, a lot of my time. If you're ready for a motion, I'll make it.
Yes, ma'am.
Motion to approve the local consent for Class C license for the full-service restaurant at Artisan Group LLC.
Second.
Motion by Michelle and a second by Betty. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries unanimously. We were missing Joe on that. You just might note.
Looking forward
that.
to coming and having some pizza.
Yes, sounds great. We'll be there. Okay.
All right, the next item is a beer license for Walgreen Company. Walgreen has acquired Rite Aid there on St. George Boulevard. So there's an existing license there for Rite Aid. This would be a new owner of the facility, which requires a new license for that location. They do meet the requirements.
Any questions for Gary on this, council?
Now, does this mean like the Walgreens we know Walgreens?
Yeah.
When's that happening?
It's for medicinal purposes, Michelle.
I don't know when the
Are they-
actual
are
date
they
of time
redoing
was, but
the
they're
building?
going to maintain the name, as I understand, as Rite Aid, but I'm not sure about what they're going to do with the building itself, or fix it up, or make some changes. We can hope.
Would be nice if it had a facelift.
Yep.
Other questions? Ready for a motion if you're so inclined.
Motion to approve the request for a Class A beer license at 615 East St. George Boulevard.
Second.
Motion by Michelle with a second by Ed. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed, say nay. Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, let me get to this next one. Sorry, I'm trying to. This is a donation agreement with MBA Properties out at Sunbrook Ranch, which is known as the old Moore Business Forums building, and development of that area. There's about 788 square feet that they'd like to donate a portion of that to the city that's adjacent to the Mathis Park. And what the purpose is that in the future, when the development gets near that, there'll be an emergency access that will be used to gain, not everyday access, but in case there's a fire or an emergency, they'll be able to use this to gain access to their property.
Sounds like a good plan. Any questions, council?
Seems like a long time ago we talked about
Yep,
that.
we did.
If we own the road, then are we able to block it off? How do we make
It
so
will be
it's
blocked
limited?
off.
It's emergency
It's an
only.
emergency only. There'll be a gate, and
All
they'll be
right,
their
okay.
responsibility to put that in.
Okay.
And it's also their responsibility to make the improvements to the site. We have no obligation to do any of that.
And that was to get the additional units they asked.
Right.
They asked for.
Right.
So if they don't do those,
They
won't
don't get the
do that.
units, so.
Yeah, okay, great.
Any other questions, council? Ready for a motion? This is the kind we like, right?
Yeah.
Make a motion to approve the donation agreement with the MBA Properties on the aforementioned location.
Second.
Motion by Ed with a second by Joe. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Mayor, I just would like to add one thing. We've been working with Mr. Blosh for years on trying to make that property work, and he's landscaped the front, and it
Looks 100% good.
It does.
Looks so
It
good. So
does.
just like to
Yep.
thank him on the record for doing that, because the property looks a lot better with that landscaping.
Yep.
in.
Yeah.
Well said.
Yep. Wes, if you have a map on this next one? This next one's there's a detention basin in this subdivision area. That the city owns, and there's one of the property owners next to it wants to purchase a portion of that property and landscape it. As I understand it, and Wes, you can correct me, is that's higher on that area they're trying to purchase from the city than what the basin is, and so it's really not going to affect the capacity of that area for detention of the runoff in that subdivision area.
Yeah, it looks like it's the upper area. It takes in a little bit of the slope, but from the street view, it looks like, yeah, most of it is an
Right.
upper bench area.
And the intent is to landscape it, and there's not going to be buildings on or anything like that. They're just wanting to landscape it.
clarify anything that they can't remove the
Higher portion, the part that's like the wall to the basement.
I would think if you included in the motion that they can't negatively impact the detention basin, then, and we would approve the plans or whatever they want to do with it so that they don't affect the ability of that thing to hold water or to not run out.
Good. Any other questions or comments on it?
That is assessed property, the value on that property.
Well, we're just suggesting it's $1.50 a square foot. It's what we've normally charged in that area, right?
For surplus.
Right.
Jet will want it for $1. He's not here.
That's how you can say that. I know.
He's not here to
Yeah.
defend himself.
But I guarantee you he would say $1. No, I know him very well. And,
I do too. He's my banker.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
He buys all of his clothes at the DI and he shops at the...
All right, be careful.
Be careful, buddy.
No, he's a frugal son of a gun. If
Nothing
you
wrong with
want to
that.
learn how to save money, you go talk to Jet.
Well,
He looks nice, though.
He
really
is.
does.
He's a very sharp guy. Very sharp guy. I've known him my whole lifetime. We were roommates in Salt Lake City, so he's a great guy.
Well, you better make the motion then in order to save face with him.
Well, if he should have been here, but I'll tell him that.
Tell him to watch this.
I'll go ahead and make the motion that we go ahead and sell the surplus property, approximately 1210 West Shadow Point Drive and 1210 West Circle to Jed Hafen.
Second.
I have a motion by Jimmy and a second by Ed. Any discussion on the motion?
$1.50.
$1.50.
$1.50.
Yes.
Right.
Okay. Does that sound good?
Sounds good.
Sound
you should
good?
see his counters in that house. He did them himself. Pretty cool. Yeah.
Annette, do you have that? Okay.
Oh, yeah, he will. He takes that as a badge of honor, trust me.
Yeah. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. 6F.
Go to the Planning Commission report.
Planning Commission report from December 12th. Item 1, A, B, and C, public hearings to be advertised for January 18th City Council meeting. Item A, consider a zone change amendment in a plan development commercial zone to develop the Archibald Commercial Center. The property is generally located at the intersection of Straggles Road and a southern corridor. The owner is GAS Fueling Company. Representative is Mr. Bob Hermanson. Side note, this is real close to that Big Shots that I was mentioning earlier. Item B, consider a zone change amendment in the plan development commercial zone to develop Henriksen Butler Building and for approval of a second future building in the Riverwoods Mill Commercial Subdivision. The property is generally located on 1600 South Circle between Tonnequin Office Campus and the Santa Clara River Trail. The owner is Ellis LLC. Representative is Mark Hendrickson. And finally, item C, consider a zone change amendment in the plan development commercial zone to develop one single-story medical office building on Lot 2 of the BGG Commercial Subdivision, and this is adjacent to the Crossroads Center at MacArthur Landing, and it's property that's just right next to the post office. Located at approximately 1100 East Riverside Drive, the owner is GLC Properties. Representative is Dr. Davis, and that concludes the three items requested to be set for January 18th.
Any questions, council?
Motion to advertise the public hearings for January 18th, 2018.
Second.
Motion by Michelle and a second by Betty to set these three public hearings for January 18th, 2018. Any discussion?
Yeah, we need to change the name of that street. I
We
say,
do.
I say that every time.
Every time.
Yeah.
Should we make it subject to that? Oh, wait a minute. We're in charge of that.
Yeah.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Second item on the Planning Commission report, it's consider a proposed building design conceptual site plan for expanding Mesa Villa condos by adding an additional 24 multifamily units in the R4 zone. The property is generally located at 1100 East, 400 South. The owner is Mesa Villas LLC. So this is a building design conceptual site plan. We're looking at the design. The code gives specific outlines on what the council looks at for this item. This is the area. This is the existing condos here, and they're proposing this vacant property that's located between the existing and I-15. This is a close-up showing that vacant property. General plans HDR, which is high-density residential. The zoning is R4, which allows around 22 units an acre. This is the site plan they're proposing. Here's a close-up. So they're adding 3 buildings. Right now, this is an existing building here, which the rear faces the freeway. And so they'll be putting a new 2-story building here with 10 units, and it'll be facing I-15. There is a 2-story building they're adding here, and it'll be also be facing the freeway. There's a single-story laundry facility located here. They will remove that facility and put a new building with 6 units. How many? 6. And the parking, they meet the parking ordinance. There's a provision in the code, and I'll read it. It says, for projects with more than 50 dwelling units, the Planning Commission may reduce the requirement to 1.5 spaces per unit, where it can be shown that 2 spaces per unit is an excessive amount of parking. The Planning Commission reviewed the project and made that finding, and so they do meet the parking requirements. They also meet the guest parking requirement of 22 parking places. This is their landscaping plan. They meet the landscaping plan. Recreation, they required 13,000 square feet, and they have 16,000. And they're proposing an open or a green space, which the code allows for an open playground or green space. The design review, and so the code is really specific on what is required to be considered as part of the design review. And it states, the Planning Commission and City Council shall review the design plans to determine whether the proposed development will be compatible with the character of adjacent and surrounding developments, and whether the aesthetically the development is in harmony with the character of the neighborhood in terms of style, materials, and colors. And so what they're proposing is to maintain the same design that the existing project has. I have a materials board. It's white stucco with the reddish tile. And so they'll be maintaining the same elevations and materials of what's already what's already built. This is the elevations, a few other perspectives. This is the project. This is what it looks like from I-15. So right now from I-15, you see the back of these. And so with the new buildings, you'll actually be seeing the front of the condos. And so aesthetically, it'll be better than what is being seen now. Again, that's a requirement is, does it meet the character of the neighborhood? This is the character. A lot of townhouses, a lot of apartments. So this is the character. And that concludes staff's presentation. Planning Commission, they had several comments on the project. They did recommend approval, and I'll read some of their recommended conditions. Consider, so right here, right in this location, there's a building here. They're proposing to put a building here. They're going to be putting a breezeway here that connects those buildings. And so they'll, so it's 11 feet. And it does, because they're considered to be attached. And so this is the area where the Planning Commission had most of their comments. Consider installing lighting for safety in the 10-foot wide area between buildings. Consider bicycle storage in the 10-foot wide area between buildings. Consider a sidewalk area in the 10 feet wide area between buildings. And so this is the 11 feet they're referring to. Even though they said 10, it's 11. And that concludes staff's presentation. The applicant's representative, Reed Pope, is here to answer any questions.
Question, John, what about our corridor there for the tunnel?
That is located
right there.
right here.
Yeah, I was
fact, it
guessing
says
that's
right
what
here.
it said.
Yep.
So that's worked out.
Well, I think it's still in negotiations. I think somewhat dependent on making sure they can do what they're doing there, and then by not getting approval, they won't have to have that space. It'd be extra space, and so my understanding is that they're amenable to doing it and just working out the cost, if there's any cost or a purchase of the property or a donation, whatever it may be.
So the way that they're proposing this today, that would work for them and work for
And it would
us.
still give us room to make the connection underneath 400 South.
It's about 25 feet located just south, right here.
Very good. Just wanted to make sure that that was going in the right direction. Any questions, council?
So we're approving the design and the conceptual plan?
Yep.
Correct.
Okay. I'd be happy to make that motion, that we approve the proposed building design conceptual site plan for expanding the Mesa Villa condos. Do you want me to keep going, or is that enough?
That's fine.
Okay.
We have a motion by Betty and a second by Joe. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Next item on the Planning Commission report is item 3, conditional use permit. Consider request to construct a detached residential RV garage that will exceed 15 feet unless a conditional use permit is granted for a greater height. The property is located at Lot 23 of the Arbor subdivision. The zoning is R112, and the representative is S&S Homes. So this is a vicinity map. Here you can see the fields of Little Valley. You can see the intermediate school here, and Little Valley Road, and the turquoise color here shows the property. And this is Lot 23. Here's the home on Poplar Lane, and this is the proposed detached garage in the back. The setbacks can be seen there, 10 feet, and I'll have to look up to see what this one is, but they meet and exceed, and they are out of the utility easements. This shows the floor plan, and the zoning again is R112. That's just showing from the subdivision plat. The elevations, again, it's tall, so it can have an RV in it. Rock on the front, a little bit on the side, but other than that, just the stucco and the 2 windows. The roof, as you know, is measured to the midpoint, and the very peak ridge is 19 feet 4 inches, but the midpoint is 17 feet, so it's 2 feet above what's allowed without a conditional use permit. And that concludes staff's comments, unless there's any questions from the city council.
It's
Who's
James,
the applicant on
so
this?
I think we should deny it
Yeah.
because we've never denied one. So let's just do it for fun.
No, we never have in 4 years. We've never denied one. So, hey,
4
but I do
years.
have a question. It seems like when this came before the Planning Commission, there was an elevation change from Little Valley Road or whatever road that is on the left side, so that 19 feet wouldn't be right up above that. Is that true? Is there a difference?
There
in
were a
elevation?
couple that were here recently that we looked at, and I went out and took photos of those. I didn't of this one. There was some concern about how close they were. This one is set back.
Yeah, it is quite a ways.
I think it's 25 feet.
Yeah.
So I'll let the applicant talk about any
Yeah, we can
topography
approve it
issues or zone change. We think it'll be set back far enough it won't be noticeable because you've got the landscaping here and
Okay. Yeah.
on the street.
James Sullivan, and I think it is 2 to 3 feet lower than Little Valley Road, so it's not much more than that. I don't think that the ones that were further north were lower than that, up to 5
that's
feet.
probably the
below.
ones I was thinking of before.
Yeah. This one's only 2 to 3 feet.
Well, I think it's great that you're 25 feet from the road, from the property line or whatever it is anyway, so that mitigates a lot of that.
Perfect.
Thank you. Any other questions for the applicant?
Did you come just for this?
I've been just here to listen to you guys.
Oh.
Well, I think we should approve it because I don't want to ruin our record. And I still move.
We have a motion by Betty and a quick second by Michelle. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Really? The motion carries unanimously. Thanks, James. No.
You're not done?
Two more.
I'll go really fast. Okay, item 4 from the Planning Commission report is a request to consider approval of a one-lot commercial final subdivision plat called 3202 East Crimson Ridge Drive Church Subdivision. Representatives Development Solutions. Property is located at 3202 East Crimson Ridge Drive. Zone is R1A. All aspects of this final plat reviewed by staff and meets the conditions of preliminary plat. So this is Crimson Ridge Drive. This is the church, one-lot church subdivision. The only thing is they'll be required to dedicate and finish the improvements along Crimson Ridge Drive with this subdivision, with the church.
Any questions on this final plat?
No. Motion to approve the final plat subdivision for 3202 East Crimson Ridge Drive Church subdivision.
Second.
Motion by Michelle, second by Betty. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, item 5, should have just had John do this when he's up here. Item 5 is a request to consider approval of an amended preliminary plat for a 24-unit residential subdivision called Mesa Villas Condominiums amended. Location is 1109 East, 400 South. Property is 2.95 acres. Zone is R4. General plan HDR. Again, John just showed this to you. The only interesting thing with this is because these will be platted, they will be required to provide a water and sewer service to each unit, so that because they are platted. Also, the other thing is we'll have to look at is there's a fair amount of drainage that comes down here off of I-15, and so with this we'll just need to make sure that that drainage, and we'll have to see how it interacts with the new tunnel, because there is when these commercial projects were built up here, there were some storms that came through that really impacted them during construction, so we'll just have to take care of that. The other thing is they really wanted to extend this through and have another driveway here, but you can see that the fence for this project is actually right here, and then they own 10 feet or so west of that line that they really are not doing anything, which then didn't allow them to then get that another driveway access through there. Tried to work it out with property owners, but the condominium project here or whatever just wouldn't work with them on it.
Questions on this preliminary plat? Ready for a motion, if you're so inclined.
Move to amend the preliminary plat for 24-unit residential subdivision located 1109 East, 400 South. And Reed Pope, the Reed is spelled wrong, but, and I think that's all you have. Right? Okay.
Motion by Betty, second by Ed. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, the next two items, if we're done in Planning Commission,
Yep.
okay, is they're federal aid agreements, which basically means that we're agreeing to apply for federal monies to do some road projects. The first one is a potential widening of River Road and adding some turning lanes on River Road from 1450 South up to Riverside Drive. And I'm going to let Cameron give you any details you might have and what we're proposing, but the real financial part of this is that during this next year, while we're doing the planning, design, and working through that, the cost is $373,000. That's our match. And then once it's designed and built,
then we'd be applying to the federal, for federal funds through UDOT to get the extra $5 million or whatever the total project cost ends up being. And so we've got probably a year's worth of design and environmental reviews and all the rest of that stuff. But Ken, why don't you give them an idea of what we're talking about as far as the expansion of this
Okay.
area?
And there's part of that funding when they allocated it through the MPO. Some of it's available now, and that's what they
Right.
wanted to start with the design and the environmental, and then the next fiscal year is when it's available. But the design is for the purpose of providing dual left lanes, turning lanes, at Riverside Drive northbound, River Road northbound onto Riverside Drive, and then southbound on River Road onto 1450 South. To be able to provide that additional lane, you would need to be able to widen the bridge, and so that's where the major cost comes from. Is the overall budgeted estimate is the $5.5 million. There will require a little bit of widening to be able to match the lanes up. They will need to widen just a little bit on that north side, and then also on the south side. So there will be some right-of-way cost. There will be bridge cost. I don't know if we'll have any utility relocations, but that's the gist of the project, is to get those dual left turn lanes.
Is there any approval we have to get to widen that bridge like we did over on Mall Drive to even build the bridge?
Yeah, they'll have to go through environmental. I'm sure that we'll have
Not
to get
another
permits and
15-year
everything.
deal, is it?
Oh, I don't think so, because the bridge is already there, but a lot of times
We'll have restrictions.
Yeah, they try and say, just
When you can
because you're
build.
taking that footprint, there'll probably be some mitigation and stuff like that we'll have to deal with, but we'll see.
As we've working and finishing up the project that's right there for the water line and the trail, as you're aware, the trail will move off of the bridge. I guess it's in the sidewalk
Yeah.
now, but the bridge will go over onto the new structure that's being built there. And hopefully that'll allow us to, we don't know about sidewalk yet, and we'll have to work through those, but it might be that you might save a little bit of that expansion by not having to put a sidewalk if you can put it on the
bridge.
It's the bridge, or
The pedestrian.
the pedestrian bridge.
Yeah.
And so that's what you'll have to look at when you get into the analysis through the planning process that you go through for the first year. So don't think that we'll be down there tearing up River Road after we just get it fixed. It'll probably be at least a year or so before we can figure this out.
This was part of a plan. We've been
Yep.
working on this.
Well, the MPO gets a certain amount of federal dollars every year, and we've been very selective and being very careful in where we want to put federal dollars in our system because of the requirements that come with it. But this is since it's such a highly trafficked road and it does meet the long-range plan that's been submitted to the MPO for funding on that particular neck of it, that we think it's a good project for that.
Well, one thing to think about is by getting a dual left turn lane in there, the amount of cars, you can get twice as many cars in there during the same time period. And so the hope is by getting those cars through, then you can lessen the green time for that left turn phase. Then you can add more green time to the other phases on the intersection and try and improve the overall intersection.
Well, and
greatly.
it's one of the key intersections
Right.
that we
Yeah.
get complaints on for that reason, that it's busy at certain times.
Well, if you leave the green long enough to satisfy
everyone.
all of them through there, then you'll never get it through
That's right.
on Riverside Drive.
That's
so
right.
It backs up. So it's got to be, this is at least the first phase, and then we have to widen out River Road to 3 lanes, all the way up. But
Right.
That's in the future, but not now.
That should relieve some of the traffic accidents that are taking place.
We hope
in
so.
there.
Yep.
So the southbound coming down River Road, that really won't change?
It can, because by getting twice as many cars through there on the dual lefts,
Right.
you can add more green time southbound to be able to get more cars through there.
But you would stop the northbound from turning right there. I mean the southbound from turning right off the Riverside when they're turning left to go into the dual lanes.
That will depend on what we need to do or what we can do
For
for
right-of-way.
If we can get
Yeah.
some more right of way, then
That'd
we'll
be
try and
great.
keep that
Yeah,
right
that'd
turn
be
lane in
great.
there.
We're going to have to do some negotiations because you've got a subdivision that sits right there on that north end, and we're going to have to see what we can do to get some additional right of way. It's a little easier on the south where you got the banks and stuff like that, but up there it's
It's tight.
It's tight, and we're going to have to work on that. But that's part of the planning process that you go through that you're approving, if you approve it tonight, that's part of that study that'll have to go through to try to see how it works.
Well, this is a critical arterial, for the city, so I think it certainly makes sense. Any other questions or comments for Cameron? All right, ready for a motion if you're so inclined, council.
Motion to approve the federal aid agreement for the River Road widening at Riverside to 1450 South
The
in
amount
the amount of $373,973.
Second.
Motion by Michelle with a second by Joe. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries unanimously.
And you might note, just for the record too, that UDOT will administer this this plan, and so
Since it's a federal aid
federal
thing.
aid dollars, right? The next item is approval or a consideration of approval for another federal aid project, which we've talked about previously, and this is the pedestrian underpass that you referenced earlier, Mayor, on the 400 South. As you're aware, the city is committed to spend up to $600,000. Dixie State University has agreed to pay $600,000. The Dixie MPO has agreed to pay $200,000, and then UDOT has agreed to match those amounts for $1.4 million. So the total project cost is $2.8 million at the estimate at this time, and this would allow another access, pedestrian access, underneath I-15 to hopefully connect DSU and the east side of the freeway with the west side, and allow that flow of the pedestrians through there, which we think is incredibly important as we try to link and use more pedestrian, keep them off the roads to go all the way around, and keep them, it helps up with the traffic issues. And so we certainly recommend going forward with this project.
Can that also be, as it's designed, for bicycles?
Oh yes, it will be bicycles.
Bicycles and
pedestrian.
Pedestrian bike. Yep.
Yep.
Okay, awesome.
I mean, I hope it's helpful. We think it will be, but if we could do cars, we probably would do that too. But you can't. So.
Well, anytime you get another access through that freeway is
Good.
important, whether it's cars or vehicles or whether it's pedestrian.
We think it'll be good for Dixie State and, with some of their students that go over to the health science building that's by the hospital, some of the shopping, some of the housing, especially married student housing that's on the east side of the freeway. So hopefully that'll be good. Yes, sir.
I just asked Cameron to comment. Is this final on the word underpass? Could it be an overpass and the other adjustments that may be considered?
That'll be determined once they get into the design. I know the elevation from I-15 down to the roadway is not very much right there, and so they'll be looking at what options they can do. A lot of that has to do with when they get into the utilities and find out what the drainage is and everything, what's going to come out best.
So we're saying underpass now, but it could turn out to be an overpass.
Yeah.
Probably access would be the word, whether it's underground or overhead.
Sounds good. Thank you, Cameron. Okay, so the reason this is a federal aid agreement, Gary, is that because of the matching funds coming from the MPO?
Mm-hmm. Well, no, it's actually just us entering into this joint agreement with all those entities and committing our share of the cost of the.
It's because of all of it.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so I would entertain a motion to approve of the federal aid agreement for the 400 South connection project, let's put it that way, as has been described to us for the amount of $1.2 million.
So moved.
Motion by Betty, second by Ed. Any discussion on the motion? Is that sufficient, Gary?
Well, just to clarify, the 1.2 million is what the state's putting in, and so the agreement is with us and the state's
we're only 600.
We're 600.
The 1.2 is so the college they requested that they pay us the money and then we pay the state their 600 and our 600.
Right. So we're paying the 1.2, but
Yeah.
really only 600 is from our coffers.
From the city, yep.
Right.
Clear as mud?
Yep. Yeah.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries unanimously. Excited to see that moving forward. Thank you, Cameron, and for the work there at the Dix. What's it called? Yeah, MPO, Dixie Tech. What do we call it? Dixie D-Tech. Yeah.
Metropolitan Planning Organization.
Three of us are on that. So, okay, Gary, that's looking like it, isn't it? Any reports, council, before we go into closed session? I believe we are going to need one. Any reports?
No, but I've had several people comment about the dangerous Dixie Drive.
Yeah, I hear that on the radio occasionally.
I know I was listening to you this morning. Chief
Gary
Warden.
drives it.
And I told him I would bring it up tonight just so that I did it.
Well, the comment that I hear the most is, I'm going to forget the street, but it's some of the cross streets, trying to get on. I want to say First, what would it be, First South or First
Isn't it by the golf
and
course?
Dixie Drive, or would that be too? Anyway, there's
one that comes over the top there on Dixie Drive that goes to that area.
There should be ways to slow them down. Just a little
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I know if you live out there like I do, you better be careful because the police officers are there.
Well, and that's what I've tried to tell people on the radio.
They're watching the red lights, and in fact, they right on the Valley View Drive and connection with Dixie Drive, and so they're making a dent. And I've noticed personally that the speed has slowed down. I don't know how long that'll be, but instead of having to go 55 to keep up with the traffic, you only have to go 43. So
Okay.
Yeah, and it's
43.
43?
Well,
go ahead, Mayor.
Well, I was just going to say, it's, unfortunately, it's a problem we have across the city. Just pick a road. You hear it. We get it on emails, we get it phone calls, whether it's Bloomington Drive now that and we knew this would happen. Now that Bloomington Drive is about halfway redone, the speeds have picked up. Sean mentioned it. He thought he noticed it when he was out there, and I got well, you saw there's a letter. Yeah. Well, it's wonderful.
Oh, it is wonderful.
Yeah, and I do think, frankly, there's probably an increase in the speed limit, maybe justified there, but not to 50, And there was a. I was not going 50 for the record. All right. I didn't want to get you in trouble there.
I just wanted to say it's appropriate, Mayor, that we thank the police department for that extra efforts that Gary recognized with the resources that they have and what's taking place with the increased volumes of traffic and growth of the city. We appreciate
And
very
we do,
much.
and we do hope they're successful in attracting some new officers in the next while. Any other reports? Probably not too many committees have met yet in the year, but Michelle, anything? Joe? Gary, anything? Okay, I believe we need a closed meeting. Is that correct, Gary? For what purpose today?
Let's see, economic development.
Oh, I skipped you, didn't I? What's that?
It's that incentive discussion.
Okay. So, Jimmy, anything before we?
Exactly 1 year ago today, I dropped my kid off to go to Philadelphia. It's been 1 year today.
And
Wow.
He just posted that on his webpage. So.
Wow.
Time goes by.
With a big Philly cheesesteak in his hand.
So, if you're so inclined, council, we need a motion to go into a closed meeting for, what's the way to say that? Incentive agreement discussion?
I don't know, Sean, what, in the past, we've had the discussion about sale of property, and this would be a lease of property that I would consider similar to a sale of property.
That's right, and because we haven't determined the exact location, it would be a sale of property that we need to discuss.
Potential sale of property.
Potential sale. That's right.
Motion by Michelle, second by Joe. Any discussion? All in favor, starting with Ed, say aye.
No.
Aye.
I just thought somebody ought to say no tonight.
All right,
This was
motion
a
carries.
Very
That was
congenial
fun.
meeting.
Good work, Betty. Good work. Thank you, everyone, for being here.